Right now on the National Weather Desk, winter warm-up. Much of the nation is teased with early spring temperatures, while another atmospheric river brings more rain to the Pacific Northwest.
The Pacific Ocean is very data sparse, and these are really the best way to go out and observe these storms.
New York State buildings collapse under the weight of heavy snow.
It's been an insane snowfall this year for sure. Know that more people are going to have issues as the weather heats up.
A look at the status of the ice cover across the Great Lakes.
One lake stands out above the rest in the wrong way.
Why people in Maine should pay attention to a potential volcanic eruption in Alaska, and a closer look at the difference between wet and dry snow.
A drier snow can produce 20 inches of snow or more per inch of moisture.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. What a difference just a few days can make. Last week, we were looking at record low temperatures across much of the nation. This morning, those same places are getting a taste of spring. Check out this map of today's forecast highs across the country. Temperatures in the plains range from the 50s to the low 80s in parts of Texas. The Mid-Atlantic is looking at the 60s. And the good news is that much of this warm weather should actually stick around for most of the week as well. And that's a big change from last week. Check out some of these temperature swings. Dallas set a record low of 12 degrees last Thursday. Today's high should be 72, or maybe a swing of 60 degrees. Last Tuesday, the mercury fell to 19 degrees below zero in Minneapolis. Today's high should reach 50, a 69-degree difference. And Wichita, Kansas dropped to 8 degrees below zero last Thursday, a far cry from today's high of 66 degrees. Well, an atmospheric river brought heavy rain and flooding to portions of the Pacific Northwest over the weekend. Officials closed several highways due to water on the roads, mudslides, and also snow slides. More wet weather could hit the region this week, and officials from the National Weather Service are using hurricane hunting aircraft to track atmospheric rivers that are bringing all of this moisture. Kayla Mueller has that story.
I'm in a C-130, but it's not just any C-130. It's a WC-130 used to hunt hurricanes. But over the next few days, it's going to be used to hunt atmospheric rivers. A partnership spanning across several agencies, Yuba Water, the Department of Water Resources, the U.S. Air Force, and Scripps Institute of Oceanography, is working to better understand atmospheric rivers.
The one thing with California is that it's really the land of extremes. It's either feast or famine. The variability from year to year in terms of the amount of precipitation that falls is the most variable compared to anywhere else in the United States.
Too many or too few atmospheric rivers can be a determining factor of flood or drought. So researchers are learning more about them to help with the forecast and optimize water management.
This place is a very good location for us to, one, the proximity of the atmospheric rivers for us, and to just how the weather is here. We can easily come in and come out.
Atmospheric river research flights are typically done from January through March. Teams are flying out from Mather Air Base to the Pacific Ocean.
Because the Pacific Ocean is very data sparse, and these are really the best way to go out and observe these storms. And if these forecast models don't know what's going on over the Pacific Ocean, they're not going to forecast them well as they're making landfall over California.
During a typical mission, there are about 25 dropsondes that they shoot through here to collect data about the storm.
It has a parachute on it, and as it drops through the storm, it collects a bunch of data, and it allows them to draw a vertical map of the storm.
If we've had a couple of atmospheric rivers that aren't really producing a lot of rain, then they try to conserve more water in certain areas. But if it is going to be a very heavy rainfall event, then maybe they might be talking about releasing water.
All of this data collected from the flights are sent back to weather centers to compile and compare, ultimately improving storm predictability and forecasting.
In a warming climate, we're seeing that variability is becoming even more so. And California is becoming even more dependent on these atmospheric rivers to provide the water necessary for agriculture and drinking and other uses across the state.
It will be a relatively balmy 46 degrees in central New York State today. That's not nearly warm enough to melt all the snow that has fallen. It's so heavy, more than 24 buildings have already collapsed under its weight. Rachel Culver has more from just north of Syracuse.
So far this year, 27 structures across Oswego County have collapsed under the weight of a large amount of snow that has fallen in a short period of time. That includes the Parish Salt Barn, the Omega Wire Plant in Williamstown, and many barns just like this one. The key to preventing it is getting up there to clear the snow. Or you can hire someone like Brian Manwaring, who says he hasn't seen a winter like this in decades.
It's been an insane snowfall this year for sure. We've been going around the clock. I've worked over 70 hours for the last since after Christmas. I haven't stopped. I haven't had a day off. I know that more people are going to have issues as the weather heats up, and if it rains, more roofs are going to collapse. It'll get heavier, and then the structure can't handle it, and it'll come down.
With milder than normal conditions last winter, there was very little ice coverage on the Great Lakes. Things have changed this year, but maybe not as much as you would think. Meteorologist Trevor Robideau takes a look at how ice coverage this winter compares to other years and what's normal.
Last year, Grand Traverse Bay looked like this, but this year it looks like this. A drastic difference over the course of 1 year.
It's been a really cold winter. Overall, the Great Lakes are just slightly below average and obviously way better than they were last year. Across all 5 Great Lakes, we have a total of about 38% ice cover. And last year at this time, we were at 5%.
That may be surprising to some, considering we've been below average temperatures for most of the winter. So cold that Lake Erie has almost completely frozen over.
And in particular, Lake Erie stood out because it froze over like crazy in early mid-January. The other lakes are still working on kind of catching up, but we are pretty much at the long-term average.
One lake stands out above the rest in the wrong way. Lake Superior is far below the average ice cover for the year. This chart maps the trend. The red line shows the historical average, while the black line shows the trend in ice cover this year. Lake Superior sits about 20% ice cover below the normal. This begs one question: why?
It is an enormous lake. It's very deep, and it doesn't really give up its heat real easily. So it was warm going into the winter, and so it's behind the curve, and it's much lower as far as ice cover goes. On an average year on Lake Superior, and when we say average, we're talking over the last 50 years. Ice cover is usually about 43% on Lake Superior. But this year, we're seeing only about 24% ice cover on the lake.
Ups and downs in ice cover are expected from year to year, but it may take a few more years of colder conditions to get Lake Superior back on track.
Geologists who study volcanoes are keeping a close eye on a mountain in Alaska after an increase in earthquake activity and geographical changes. Meteorologist Emily Santom has more.
Mount Spur, and there's a 50-50 chance it could erupt in the near future. It's located 75 miles west of Anchorage, Alaska. Here it is on your screen right here. Now, scientists at Alaska Volcano Observatory have reported several small earthquakes beneath the volcano, leading to the possibility that Mount Spur is inching closer to an eruption. They anticipate an increase in activity such as snowmelt. You can see right here, as this is a look at the crater of Mount Spur, and a rise in temperature in the lake that actually recently formed inside that crater. Now, thankfully, this mountain actually sits far enough away from the general population so they wouldn't be an immediate threat. Now, the question does remain, could a possible eruption send ash to the northeast, similar to what happened this past summer at the Canadian wildfires? Well, it all depends on the jet stream. During the winter, the jet stream runs towards southern United States, and for example, if it was maybe May or June, the jet stream actually runs across the Canadian-U.S. border, which is why we saw a lot of the smoke from this past summer's wildfires. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Santa.
And check out this video from Wisconsin. This is hoarfrost falling off trees. It only forms in very specific conditions when water vapors in the air comes into contact with a solid surface that are below freezing. It immediately forms feathery ice crystals on trees, leaves, and even fences. Some of the best places to find it, this frost, is on exposed plants near unfrozen lakes and also streams. And for all the latest weather news and videos, be sure to follow us on social media. You can search the National Weather Desk on your favorite social media platform. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, the ideal weather conditions for maple syrup season have arrived just about in time in Maine. We'll look at how producers in the state are preparing for this. And this is the time of year potholes can start to form on the roads. We'll show you how it happens.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Munn. Let's get a look at the Northeast as we head through the day on Monday. We are looking at dry conditions for the most part. We are going to see an isolated rain or snow shower as you head up towards the north Monday night into early Tuesday. Then Tuesday, lots of clouds expected, a round of some light rain and light snow showers possible as we head through the day on Tuesday throughout the Northeast. And then much of the same for the day Wednesday. We are going to stay mainly dry. Temperatures today topping out in the 30s and 40s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Starting out your Monday, still going to be sunny and mostly dry as we are not seeing much of anything really rolling through. Some clouds may thicken up towards the second half of the day, and then overnight into Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the next front rolling through, bringing some rain showers to the region. But temperatures are going to be much easier to handle. We're likely going to touch the 50s everywhere tomorrow, really melting away any remaining snow or ice. And then even as we get to Tuesday, temperatures could be quite a bit on the mild side.
I'm meteorologist Venus Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs. Looking at 60s up in Nashville, 63 in Atlanta, Pensacola about 66 degrees, 74 West Palm, Charleston about 62 degrees. So it looks like we have an area of low pressure moving across the Gulf, and that will continue to drop heavy rainfall across central and south Florida. Areas up around Atlanta, Raleigh, looks like broken clouds going through the day, but we'll get more clearing as the system continues to push south. Miami is going to be drenched with rain as this continues to give them showers throughout much of the day. Quiet in Atlanta.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A look at lenticular clouds that formed above Mount Hood late last week, maneuvering like a dance. These clouds can form when rapidly moving air is forced over terrain such as a mountain, and there's enough moisture above the peak to condense into these clouds. In Portland, Maine, these feathered beauties take a dip in the water with the snow all around. Maybe it was a heated bird bath.
For more content like this, subscribe to the National Weather Desk's YouTube channel.
Snow can be considered wet or dry, but what does that actually mean? Meteorologist Dave Dirk shows us by comparing both types of snow that fell in Bristol, Virginia and Tennessee areas last week.
Now, temperatures on Wednesday were actually in the 30s. Warmer temperatures tend to produce snow that is wetter, heavier, more dense, and will produce lower snow totals. Now, on Thursday, that Arctic air was arriving in full force with temperatures in the upper teens to low 20s, and with the atmosphere much colder throughout, the snow tends to be less dense, lighter, and drier. This produces higher snow totals. Let's compare. Wednesday's official snowfall at the Tri-Cities Airport was 1 inch with 0.14 inches of water equivalent. On Thursday, though, 2.9 inches of snow fell with similar water content. Same amount of water, 3 times the amount of snow. A wetter snow may only produce, say, 5 to 10 inches of snow per inch of moisture. It's harder to shovel and can cause tree and power line damage if there's enough of it, but it makes great snowballs and great snowmen. A drier snow can produce 15-20 inches of snow or more per inch of moisture. A dry snow is much easier to clear from your sidewalk and driveway and makes great winter recreation like sledding and snow skiing.
Potholes are such an annoyance, and some could cause a lot of damage to your car. So what makes them appear year after year? Meteorologist A.J. Mastrangelo explains.
So it's like a cross-section of a typical roadway. What we have on top is the pavement surface, typically asphalt. Then you get this rock base on top of course, the ground, the soil that is natural. Water seeps in through cracks in the road, which collects underneath, softening the road base. And you see these cracks right here. Well, what initially happens is when temperatures go down below freezing, that water turns into ice. And as we know, ice expands, forcing the pavement upwards. And what you get as a result is a little bit of a frost heave, kind of a bump in the roadways. However, where they thaw that water, it subsides, it says goodbye, and a hole is left. While you still have the frost heave on top, this hole starts to cave on in, and certainly happens once a tire goes on in it. And of course, this is a repeated process. So the pothole forms where the road collapsed, and the continuous traffic continues to expand the hole, making that more and more dangerous.
When temperatures plunge, rivers can look gorgeous when covered with ice, but when it starts to warm up again, that beauty can take an ugly turn with ice jams and possibly even the possibility of flooding. Meteorologist Mitchell Combs explains.
There are two types of ice jams. The first is a freeze-up jam, typically occurring in the early and mid-winter, and much like you're seeing behind me here on the Clark Fork River. These types of ice jams are typically less impactful, leading to little flooding, if any at all. The second type of ice jam flooding, known as a breakup jam, can result in much more flooding and damage compared to its counterpart. These more often occur during the late winter and early spring. These develop when warmer weather breaks river ice apart. As this occurs, the ice flows are carried downstream by the river's current. These ice chunks then collect to block the natural flow of the river near river bends, mouths of tributaries, areas where the river's slope decreases, as well as downstream of dams and upstream of bridges and obstructions. At this point, the water has nowhere to go except outside of a river's banks, causing flooding in upstream cities and towns near the river. If a sudden break in the ice jam occurs, the flooding can quickly transition downstream. Nearly a third of all ice jams occur in the month of March, and historically, Montana sees more ice jams than any other state. Here is another history lesson about Montana ice jams. Glacial Lake Missoula was essentially formed by a massive ice jam known as an ice dam that blocked the flow of the Clark Fork River near Idaho's Lake Pend Oreille between 13,000 and 15,000 years ago. The periodic rupturing of this ice dam led to cataclysmic flooding in parts of eastern Washington and down the Columbia River Gorge.
The ideal weather conditions for maple syrup season have just about arrived in Maine. Meteorologist Ryan Munn spoke to the maple syrup producers in that region to find out how they are preparing for this upcoming season.
This time of year, Scott Dunn is preparing for his busiest season.
But we need to be ready at the right time because the tap holes really only flow sap on a bucket for about 4 to 6 weeks, and on tubing systems we can go longer because of the technology that's there now with high quality tubing.
And there's still plenty of work to be done in the woods before sap starts flowing.
Tapping trees is kind of getting ready this week, and everyone's kind of in the woods right now tapping trees because it looks like next week's temperatures are going to warm up to where it's prime sap weather.
When tapping the trees, the lines that are used has a vacuum to help increase the flow of the sap.
Now the vacuum pump reduces the pressure in the trees to allow the trees to give up more sap easily. So by being on vacuum, we can double our sap production.
In southern Maine, a maple tree typically produces between 1.5 gallons of sap. It takes 60 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup, and ideal conditions are fast approaching.
We're looking for like a 45 degrees during the day, in the high 20s at night. We need that freeze thaw to have the trees cycle the sap. But we also need no wind. The wind will slow down production.
In a few weeks, Dunn will have enough sap to start producing maple syrup once again.
Officials in Pennsylvania are working to improve weather communication systems at an airport outside of Scranton. The new system will report wind speed, temperature, altitude conditions, visibility, and other critical weather conditions. Jake Sarwar has more.
Luzerne County plans to improve weather communication systems at the Wyoming Valley Airport in 44.
It will actually allow pilots who are flying in and out of the airport to know what the weather systems are, which would, of course, make it safer.
The FAA certified system would add a station reporting wind speed, temperature, altitude, visibility, and other critical weather-related conditions.
It's important that we're on the cutting edge. I want to make Luzerne County a place where we are up to date and we're doing what needs to be done.
With recent aviation disasters sweeping the nation, Kokomo feels safety is key and will use the new system to enhance the airport.
It's timely, and since we are doing some upgrades at the airport, this is something that will enhance all of the work that we're doing.
The Wyoming Valley Airport is used daily, but not for commercial flights like Wilkes-Barre Scranton International.
There's not major 747 planes flying into that airport, but it is used every day. Some of the medic helicopters that transport patients, critically ill patients, fuel at our airport here.
The system will also have a feature to share data with the National Weather Service for more accurate local forecasting.
And time now for a short break, but first we soar over Lake Michigan.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Michael. We do have some spotty light rain showers trying to move their way in across the Midwest today, but most of us are pretty dry and temperatures running above normal for most in the Midwest the next few days. How about 70 in Wichita for Tuesday? As we get into Wednesday, got some light showers starting to move their way closer to the Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley, but temperatures still staying pretty mild through Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at your forecast across the region, and nice day today, setting up a really nice week of weather. We'll start off with some clouds, maybe some fog across portions of East Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas, but then more sunshine across the region later on this afternoon. It's the 60s and 70s for many of us, maybe even an 80 out towards Abilene. As we head into your Tuesday, cooler morning in the 40s and 50s, afternoon 70s for the most part, lots of sunshine.
Good Monday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Stella Sun. I'm tracking an area of low pressure. The storm system will continue to strengthen, cranking up the wind gusts to as high as 60 miles per hour along the Pacific coastline through Washington State and through Oregon. We're going to continue to see a lot of the lowland rain as well as mountain snow. Temperatures will be in the low 50s in Seattle, Spokane this afternoon, in the middle 60s through LA, 70s in San Diego and Las Vegas, and middle 80s in Phoenix. That's the scene from here.
Watching the National Weather Desk.
In the South Bend, Indiana area, this winter has been good for outdoor sports such as cross-country skiing, tubing, and snowshoeing. It's a far cry from last year. Gabby Luma tells us more.
Comparing this year to last, it's been a bit of a snowier winter. With snowfall averaging at just over 16 inches for the city of South Bend, we're still a bit behind from normal, but this season has allowed more opportunities for outdoor activities. St. Patrick's County park officials tell me, compared to last winter, they've tripled the amount of days their winter sports have been open. They add last year was very minimal, with just 1 day open for tubing and 5 days for skiing. With the end of the winter recreation season approaching, park officials say it's been nice for them to see so many people take advantage of the weather.
Living in northern Indiana, sometimes it's hard to get outside, and so for us to be able to provide that opportunity and see all the families out here enjoying the tubing hill and getting out onto the trails and skiing and trying even snowshoeing for the first time, it's a lot of fun to see the families out enjoying the parks.
Looking for more weather content just like this? Be sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great day, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.